Any comments about opening sacred space, journeying into the pine tree forest?
Oh, we did that initially. I said, oh my God, isn't that interesting that the meditation that I'm going to do is going to be in the forest of northern Georgia? That's what I thought was so cool. So I was kind of in that space anyway. Are you guys hearing me or not hearing me?
Yep, we're hearing you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I may not cut out for a little bit. I mean, I was just in a bad area, but I'm going to show you where I am right now. So I'm going to just go ahead. You can see, because it's always doing grid work, right? So might as well be looking. This is where I am. This is leaving Edisto Island to go to a town called Somerville. And I heard something about Sheila saying something about plasma. I mean, I'm only getting bits and pieces because, like I said, I cut out. So yes, the pine tree forest was very synchronistic. It was really cute. I thought the dandelion mead or wine, that was especially cute. Just the whole thing was like, I felt like a little kid kind of fairy, That's kind of what it reminded me of.
Well, I'm glad. And I stayed in a hotel in Somersville when I drove to Florida last year. So that whole area is very beautiful.
Okay, so when you went to Brian's thing, you mean? When you went to that disclosure or whatever?
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay.
Yeah, I rented a car last year and I drove there to St. Petersburg. Okay, so we're going to move on with presentation by presentation. The first one was Laura Ferguson. She did two. So let's just focus on the healing part first. The healing, I don't know how you guys are on the screens, but I see Michael, Sheila, Missy. We'll go in this kind of circle here. And it's okay if you don't have any thoughts, feelings, or opinions. I'm just going to ask everybody anyways. Okay, so Michael, any thoughts, feelings, opinions about Laura's healing?
So, first off, I'd like to, kind of comment and state, Laura would be here, with us, but she unfortunately is on a family trip, and so she can't join us. But she was telling me she had a fantastic time and really enjoyed it. And I feel like what I noticed of her session was it kind of set the pace. It set the theme without even being intentional. And it was all about the self and connecting with the energy and the environment around us. And so I thought it was a beautiful way of not only setting a tone, but also bringing an idea into the community that I personally feel like we talk about, but we don't always deliver. It's like we'll say it, and then when it comes time to practice it, sometimes we're lacking, sometimes we're on top of it. And so I felt like, she put it in a way that you could understand it, and some of the questions, were a little bit over my head because I'm not a math person, but the way she answered, I was like, oh, I can understand that. Okay, so she brought it down to my level, so I appreciated that.
We were just going to talk about the sound piece, but do you want to talk a bit more about her presentation? We might as well do both of them, and then do you want to say anything else about Laura, Michael, before we move on to Sheila?
Well, the unfortunate see with the sound piece is we found that mics, only pick up certain ranges, and so occasionally the tuning forks were popping in and out, and I noticed when she would talk, the sounds of the bowl and the tuning fork would appear, And when she was quiet, you wouldn't hear the tuning fork. And I thought that was rather interesting. That I think it's because her mic might be on voice activated mode. And so, but that's just something learning curve. But I thought it was a really beautiful kind of way to relax even more from being in the forest, to kind of be like, everyone be like, okay, we can settle our nerves now, it's begun. And to coin, like, they say in like Mortal Kombat, it has begun. And
Yes.
that was how it felt when she started. It was like, we have begun.
Yes, yeah, it was a phenomenal presentation. The only reason, because when Laura first started making the musical sounds, I almost went to interrupt and say, "Oh, let's just do a quick sound." But I thought, you know what? It's still flowing, so I'm not going to interrupt, even though we couldn't hear perfectly. So I thought it's still flowing. Taking lessons forward, I might have the healer submit a pre-recorded, because remember last time Rick Gallagher had the same issues and we ended up falling back on his pre-recorded. So carrying lessons with us forward. It looks like we lost Missy, and maybe she'll be back. How about you, Sheila? Any thoughts? Just focusing on Laura right now, the music or her presentation?
you, you were reading my mind, so thank you. Um, well, I was just going to use that as a teachable moment, though, really, because as musicians, we have had those kinds of issues on Zoom as well. I don't know StreamYard. This is my first time as a participant using StreamYard. I've watched a lot of StreamYard and always been curious, how it worked behind the scenes, especially for music. But when she did tuning forks, and then right, and then she was singing, and then she had like the backing vocals, and I was like, well, this is really interesting. How's this going to work? And then stuff started going a little wonky, and I am agreeing with Michael right now that it's a frequency thing. And then also, we were talking about this in the chat some, that technically speaking, when we're vibrating at a higher frequency, those of us, right, who like to talk about such things, I have had personal experiences with that in multiple, on multiple occasions, both at festivals where you're dealing with trying to connect through the phone to, say, Stripe and some of those payment services. Things will not work. And my energy medicine doctor that I mentioned a few minutes ago, she bought a new car and she'd driven it for a week or two without any issues. When I got in it with her to go somewhere, everything went wonky on her dashboard, and she laughed about it and said, this is as a result of our frequencies mixing and our energies, and we're just blowing out some of this stuff. So I got out of the car. She had no more issues. It happened again another time, a whole month later, right? She's like, I have had this happen with more healers, psychics, this type of person than anybody else. She's like, other people get in the car with me, financial analysts, whatever, no issues. So she's like, it is not the car. It is like, she convinced me. And then when those issues happen with payment processing on phones at festivals, I was like, that's got to be it, because the rest of the day, the person had no issues. But when I walked up and tried to buy, $60 worth of stuff, it's like, it didn't want to work. It was not my card. So I mean, it's amazing how many times I've seen that happen, or been in the presence of that happening, So, and I don't think it's me. I mean, I think it's the combined energies. It's just everything raises. It's like when people say you walk into the room and you can just feel. Right. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, to put it in down to earth terms, I suppose, or practical terms. But yeah.
Yeah. And
what did
I think like when the energy rises, it gets unstable. And it starts to spiral out, spin out. Historically, that's where that comes from. We spin out, and usually it's related towards women. But our energy spins out. Yeah.
But yeah, I love it. I would like her to record it so that you have it, or that you can share it again in another, where everything is copacetic, right? That would be wonderful. I mean, I would buy it if she puts that on a recording and puts it out there, charges a fee or whatever. I would
check
buy
out
it.
her link because she does do that, and she does maybe you can help me out, Michael. It's called AMSL healing or something like that, but it basically means sound healing. Do you remember, Michael, what it's called? ASM.
I don't remember what it's called, but I do have it marked on one of my banners. So let me see if I can find the link and I can post it. Where is it? I have so many links.
Yeah, Julia's saying ASMR. Is that? Sound.
Yeah, she's got a couple of places. Oh, here it is. But yeah, it's ASMR, and she's on Gamma, and she has her own website where her music is available to listen to.
Okay, yeah, I'm definitely going to reach out to her and listen to some more stuff. We're doing a lot of the same thing. My husband's been a musician for over 40 years, so he's played in live bands. I mean, he knows all the sound stuff much better than I do. I take one look at like the board, with all the knobs, and right. I'm a technologist, but not that kind of technologist. So, yeah, I loved it. I loved the creativity that she brings. She speaks more than one language too, so that adds that extra element. And I love
Yeah,
that.
her Latino side comes out there. She's got a Latin song on Spotify there.
Yeah,
Amore or something it's called.
It's beautiful. And I love her voice. Just technically speaking, I love her voice. So I think she probably does sing really, really well. And so I was listening intently for, there's some voices that we gravitate to and some we don't. And that's why some people like Bashar. Who mentioned Bashar yesterday in their talk? We'll get to that.
Came up a few times. Yeah, I think it was Missy.
Was it Missy? Yeah. And I like what he says, but I'm not drawn to his voice. Conversely, a really good friend of ours did not like Esther Hicks's voice, and I love her voice. I've listened to her since 2008 and gone to see her in person and that kind of thing. So just when I just focus in on just the voice, there is something about the voice. And unfortunately, AI takes away from that and we use AI. My husband uses it in his songwriting, but he uses it as a demo only to kind of help with phrasing and things like that. Because the human voice, there's some element, and Michael might want, add to this too, the frequency in the human voice. I mean, there's even technology where you speak into it and it can assess your health issues. I've used that before with alternative practitioners.
I didn't know that. That's really cool because the voice says so much, right?
It does. Just like the iridology in the eyes, and looking at your fingernails and your tongue and those kinds of, right? So it's just amazing. And with AI, I never feel the God bumps, not once. And I have listened to a lot of AI music, and I can be totally fascinated with it's like looking at a painting, and loving it. But if it's too close to reality, it kind of takes away from it. Then it's like, well, did they cheat somehow? I don't know. That's just where my mind goes. So
no, I hear what you're saying. It's powerful, because it has to do with Soul Tribe and that resonance. And you know what? When I became a hypnotherapist, I thought, I really got to always have like my voice in check. Like I need to do voice yoga. But in truth, I've come to learn and appreciate that even if like I have laryngitis, that doesn't even matter because my voice, the very voice is what resonates, and people whose first language is not English, they might feel uncomfortable, but you know what? It doesn't even matter if they're speaking really, really poor, broken English. It just matters that the voice, that's what people are hearing. I thought Laura's presentation was interesting, but I felt the healing part was very like mothering and calming. Like I almost felt like I was like a baby or a toddler and I was like napping and my mom was like peacefully singing and dong, dong, dong kind of noises. And I had to get up and get water because I'm like, do not fall asleep, Gina. Do not slip into timelessness. And it almost happened a few times yesterday. Okay, so moving on to our next presenter. Well, actually, that's me because we had the breaks. So, Michael, let's go back to you. What did you think about the breaks? There was 5 of them where I read from my book some of the Unmaker's tools. And then the last break, I invited everybody on a journey to see what tools might come to them. Did any tools come to you? Any thoughts about my videos? Did you like them? I hope you like them.
So I'm going to approach this a little bit from a different stance, Gina, because I got the history with the Promise of Spring and Summer Days. So Promise of Spring, we got to see the gemstone readings and get to see that, how that unfolds and little story behind. And so that was really cool to learn. And in this one, as you said, you read from your books, and I felt like every part where you were reading was in synchronicity to where we were with the presenters. There was never a moment where I was like, why is she reading that? Why did she pick that to read? It was more like it kept the fluid going. And I also like that, it was not only, but was it short, and I don't mean like time wise. I mean, it was short in that you were giving us a sample as if we were watching Story Species, Story Medicine. And it made me want to go, do I have that book? Maybe I need to order that book to read more, and read more and get more into it. So it was like it was drawing me in. Each video would draw me in more and more to where I was like, I gotta see if I have this book. And if not, I gotta, figure out which book again was she reading from, because that one is really resonating. And your voice, I gotta say, throughout the conference and everything, your voice, you draw people in with your voice. There's a soothing aspect to it, but there's also an excitement to it to where it's like, oh, what is she talking about? Wait, hold on. I want to hear this again. And it's like, I'm almost wishing like I could replay those videos and everything, but it was really well done. And each set of the 5 videos that you put out, it's like, wow, and a little bit of back history and transparency, as I like to put it on my show, is Gina and I are both amateurs. And we were like talking about doing, these videos and everything, and worried about, how are they going to come across. But I would say watching those 5 break videos that you did by yourself, Gina, I would not say that was an amateur. You did very well on those. So to coin a term that Gina created for us, they were dragontastic.
Dragontastic. It just came to me yesterday. Dragontastic, and it seems to everybody's having a laugh at that today, right? Or dragon fan fucking tastic, really. But the book that Michael's talking about is book 8 called Scary Dreams, and Lu Xing is featured in there. So instead of calling it an introduction, I called it FYI. And then after the FYI is Lu Xing. And those 2 are absolutely free right now on my Buy Me a Coffee. So you just go there and it'll redirect you to my Facebook group where there's a PDF, And Terry is commenting, Dragon-tastic. And Michael, just before we move to Sheila, did you acquire any tools? If not, I'm sure you'll have dreams that will come. Maybe it's too personal for you to share, but I am curious if any tools came to you or tools got alchemized.
Oh, I would definitely say tools definitely got alchemized and upgraded, and I do think I did. I feel like get a tool in being observant of how I present and how I, handle the shows, now versus when I started. And Julie and I were actually talking about this last night, that when I first started and with my presentation, I was slow speaking. So it was like I had to fine tune it to be in the time slot. And I was very cognizant of the time slot and had an alarm set aside. But it's like I knew where I needed to go each slide in my presentation and left the end for story and how much story could I share. And now, where I am today, even with the moderating, it's like my voice has started to speed up. And I'm starting to get more of that presenter speed down to where I can share more. And just on a side note, moderating, I am moderating from inside StreamYard, so I can't comment right away to the chat room. So any post that or comment that I make, I have to go on my phone. And so I was constantly like getting a little frustrated because I would go on my computer because I'm so used to hosting and going, okay, here's the link, put it in the chat. I can't put it in the chat this way. Gotta go into Facebook, gotta send me a message. Now I can put it in from my phone. And so it was like interesting to see the different perspectives and the different ways of being the guest, so to speak, versus hosting and just being behind the scenes. It's like, oh, I didn't anticipate not having access to certain things, but I figured it out and I made it work. And so there were times like my comments would be delayed, and it's like, yeah, sorry about that. It took a little bit of work to get those comments there, but
Yeah, that's awesome. And you know what? There was a little bit of a delay from the live stream and the actual what was playing on YouTube. And even myself, whenever I played something, I'm like, okay, is it working? So I was back and forth on my cell phone too. Yeah, yeah, that's great insight. Thank you for that, Michael. How about you, Sheila? Any insight on my videos? We're going to get to Sheila's presentation after, but any comments, Sheila, about my 5 videos? Did you receive any tools? Let us know.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm sure that I did. I know there was something in particular, but now it's slipped my mind.
Oh, that's okay.
There was something.
Sometimes the tools will come to you, but like they're not exactly finished being clearly labeled. So it still might be in the process of manifesting. And it could be a tool that you already have that's alchemizing. So you're like, is this new? Is it old? What is this? So I'm
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Yeah, that gives me grace. I think the process, it gives the process. Well, that was something that I heard yesterday. Did I hear it from you, Gina, where you said trust the process? It may have been. I think I heard it more than once. If not, I heard it in my spirit more than once. Trust the
Yeah,
process.
Slavka was saying that too yesterday.
There
It
you
came up a lot yesterday. Yeah, trusting the process. Soma and the Pleiadians, trusting the process.
Yeah, definitely. This lifetime, I'm here to not to be so hard on myself, not to take myself so seriously, and yeah, and break the patterns. Those are big issues for me.
And you
And
know what? Those are tools in itself, the tool to recognize that. So it might not be a tool like a hammer or a pen, a tool like the ability to recognize. I like that.
that was
Uh,
exactly the word, recognize. Yeah. And just establishing this relationship within and of ourself too. And you talk about alchemy a lot. You use the word alchemy a lot more than I do. I use integrating a lot, but every year or two, my word changes what I'm focused on, right? So, like in 2022, when my husband had the stroke, that was in October. And so the word that dropped into me from spirit or Jesus or God or the universe, whatever word we want to use for that. But when it's not in your mind and it's not a word that you're familiar with or use very often and it just drops in, that's typically a gift, right? Just from the ether. And the word was trust. And I thought, well, that's thanks. I mean, like, I've got all this stuff going on and I'm praying and I'm looking and I'm seeking, and all you give me is trust. It seems like such a,
you were hoping for something more glorious, Yeah, I know.
I want to see
Your
those
gift is to
angels.
trust.
Like, I want the spectacular to happen, right? I want him to be healed in that moment, get up out of that bed and walk and all that stuff. But sometimes it doesn't come that way. So I was leaving the ER. It was nighttime. It was starting to get dark anyway. And as I walked out into the parking lot all by myself, there's nobody around. And I just get this word, trust. And it just enveloped my whole mind and spirit. And I was just like, oh, and I instantly calmed and I was like, oh, well, okay. I mean, I guess trust means I don't have to do anything, right? Just be, right? Be still and know, and all those things, right? But just that word trust came to me. And so I sat with that for days, actually. And then I got sick. So here he was in the hospital. And then I was at home sick and I was really upset because I'm like, well, number one, you forced me to trust, right? And number two, because I can't do anything, I can't be there and be his advocate, which I wanted and was there the first day, first
Seems
day and
like the tool came with other tools
the
like
tool came with
patience
us,
and
or,
whatnot,
or or that mechanism that's like, you will do this,
Yes, yeah,
you will listen to me, right? If you didn't get that the first time.
yes.
But yeah, so I
Uh,
did, I had to, and I had to ask for help. And that's another thing that I'm not very good at doing.
mm,
So yeah, so I called my sister-in-law and said, because she had said, if you need
mhm,
anything, and I'm like, well, I need
yeah.
something, take you up on that. So I called her, and they drove from Kentucky to Florida to well, she's a retired RN too, so I really needed her. I needed her expertise as well. So she actually used to work for the hospital, the conglomerate that owned the hospital that my husband was in. Her company, her previous, where she retired from, company owned it, owned the chain, right? So she drove down. She was familiar with the procedures, the protocols, the
Yes,
blah blah blah, right?
yes.
And she knew that we had a certain mindset about all of that. And she's like, now I'm just saying, she's got such a great way of presenting things, as the
Mhm.
teacher too, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And she's like,
Mm,
there's just going to be things that are going to have to happen that you're not going to like, but you
yeah.
know, you got to keep the
Uh,
priority of what's most important is to get him out of here, keep him alive, right? And so that's what we
yes.
did. And he
Well,
came
you're
home.
going to have to keep us updated on that because it seems like tools within tools and memories from the past surfacing that are like in the process of alchemizing. The
Absolutely.
next presentation to review is Sheila, Spiral Sister Murray. We are all connected. The how and the why presentation, an odyssey of science, mysticism, and lived experience that spans from the cosmos to the human heart. Let's switch turns. We'll do Sheila first, and then Michael, we'll go back to you. What are your thoughts about your presentation, Sheila? Are you happy how it unfolded?
I am, but when I did the temporary one that I sent to you, I said some things during that were probably better. But I know every day everything changes. That's the part of the fluidity that I talked about a little bit. or at least I mentioned once. I was going to talk about that more, but the truth is fluid, and just as our bodies are fluid, just as the water we drink is fluid. And Bruce Lee said it best, to be as water, flow. And I work towards that. I really love that flowing effort, so that we're not efforting all the time. It's not about pounding on the keyboard all the time and getting stressed and all. It's letting things flow, which I suppose does refer back to trust too. Well, so I guess it worked out the way it was supposed to work out. My prayer in the morning was to let the right people hear the right thing for them. Because as we know, we can't all take in 100% of everything anyway. In sales, we learned that people have to hear things 7 times before they actually, make a decision about that or think enough about it to have it stick. So I did repeat some things over. I changed like Missy, I changed how I was presenting that purposely a bit. And I, even the day before or so, was throwing away certain of my note cards and rewriting certain things. But then I thought, I didn't want to change the actual slideshow because I didn't want you to have to go through uploading, and we didn't do the test again, and right? So I'm like, if I were Gina, I wouldn't want to get this the night before the thing.
And thank you for that. Michael went through the same motions last time too, because he made some changes. Maybe he was going to tell a different story than, the story that in the pre-submitted video. It's fine. I just needed a pre-submitted video in case tech issues. You never know. You fall down the stairs randomly, car breaks down. We don't want to worry about any of that. And while you were talking, it was Laura who brought up Bashar. That came to me. So Laura was bringing up Bashar, but also Sheila. Laura set the tone musical wise for the days. Emotionally, that helped. But you helped to set the mental tone for the day, the focus of the day, how we're all connected. And so I really appreciated you being the keynote speaker and sharing your experiences with Newgrange and being in the dark, that moment. And even though it was a dark place, it was a safe place. Absolutely. And the womb and tomb. And whenever we talk about the tomb, it's like, death, right? But this darkness is actually the very primordial, most familiar thing to us, So I really appreciate your presentation.
Oh,
yeah. How about you, Michael? What are your thoughts? No pressure. Sheila's right here live with us. What are your thoughts?
But, and in full honesty, being the moderator, it's like I was paying attention, but I was also paying attention to other things. And so I was like, I'm glad Sheila went first, because I was trying to remember, okay, which one was Sheila's, so I don't say the wrong comment about the wrong presentation. And to be honest, when Gina, you said Newgrange, I was like, oh, that's the one. Okay, yeah, I remember that conversation now and presentation more clearly. And you were talking about connections in ways I knew, and I'm trying to figure out how to say it myself, because the way you were saying it, I was putting in the chat room, oh, I love how you just put that, because it's something I struggle with, like conveying and making it, go, yeah, connection. I do it every day. I make connections all the time, but when people ask me about it, it's like, how do you make connection? How does that, I really don't know, but you actually in your presentation, I feel like really started pointing out ways that the synchronicities that happen in life bring about these connections, and connections to the sites and connections to places. And I was like, I know I have ancestry from Ireland, but Ireland has always been like calling me, and I'll say it's like a home for me. And when you were talking about Newgrange and your experiences there, it was like, I feel like maybe that's why I'm being called there, is from what you were experiencing. I was like, maybe, it's time that's, is calling me, back to have that experience or a similar experience. Maybe not exactly, but it started bringing clarity and new thought to things that I have been, dealing with most of my life, and just you put in the back burners because you're like, yeah, I'm not going to Ireland. Don't really, see myself. Why would I? And then you hear that, and it's like, oh, yeah. And so then I started thinking, if it's the energy, why don't I just go and do it energetically, and I don't have to do it physically? And then my mind was like, ooh, will that work? And so you got me thinking and going, starting to plan new visits for at night to new places and new experiences. So thank you for that.
Beautiful.
And what's your blanket, Sheila? Was that a souvenir from Newgrange or what?
Well, it's from Ireland. So this is a wool. I do a lot of wool over there. So this is wool, and it's got a Celtic weave design along the edges. That's probably the better knot, the Celtic knot. And so the reason this is important, and I wanted to show Michael, was in the chat. I was asking who when they meditate, or who is drawn to the indigo, right? The indigo blue. And that, it jumped out at me. Like, it just about flew off the rack when I was walking by. There were 2 of them left, and there were 4 of us that wanted one. So imagine that fight among spiritual people, right?
And
but it was hilarious.
Yeah, and another thing that's interesting, Sheila, is when I was in paganism, I had to pick a symbol that was going to represent like my protection. And I went with the Irish triqueta, which is the 3 triangles intertwined. And so when you were showing the 3 spirals, I was like, oh, that's like a triqueta. And how interesting that I have that symbol and then you bring up very similar. I was like, oh, there was another synchronicity for the day.
Yeah, sometime you'll have to let me know what year you were born. You don't have to do it here live publicly, but yeah,
I'm fine with it. It's out there. I was born in 78.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, so that would be later. Okay, I was just curious because my mom did have 6 pregnancies and she thought maybe one was a boy. So I'm always looking. That's what kind of, even before the 4 words came to me, but even before that, my whole life since I was a child, because I heard my mom talk about her pregnancies and how she lost all the babies except me. And so my whole life since I was a child, I just remember searching for, so that's why I love when Julia and you guys talk about the SSP and the clones and I'm just like, something about those stories really draw me in, just as a person who wants to find that missing soul connection with those siblings. Or I can't explain it either right now. I'm at a loss for words, but I'm with you energetically, Michael. I think it's all very cool, and thank you for what you said.
Well, thank you, and I'll let Julia know.
Oh, definitely. I'm definitely following you both because I do feel a resonance, even though I don't know why yet exactly. And then from the Space Center stuff too, just, my husband even said again last night, even though he wasn't watching everything with me, he would catch little bits as he would walk through and sometimes roll his eyes and, those kinds of things. But yeah, he even said, we met the people we met at the Space Center for a reason. Like when you meet people in person, and that's not to say that everybody is 100% always speaking like the big T truth, right? But it's the truth as we've experienced it or we know it. And so when you eat dinner with people and you're looking at them across the table and they tell you this story and they relate it in such it's so embellished, because they lived it and they have this fractional or multi-dimensional kind of lived experience of it. It's kind of hard to freaking deny that something didn't happen to them. It's like you may not have really seen what you thought you saw, but something freaking happened to you, and it happened in such a vibrant, vivid way that you can now, even years later, retell that. And I mean, who are we to judge, right? Who are we to say this didn't happen to this person? They believe it authentically and genuinely. So we met some of those people we met that told us some outlandish stories. We did believe them then, and we still do, and even more so now after meeting Michael and Julia and hearing. And I'm reading Chris Latimer's book too about the Montauk, because I loved Stranger Things. So yeah, I had to get that and read it.
That's amazing. And the next speaker, it was Julia Anchorhaven. So Anchored in Shadow Strength, The Whispers of Remembrance and SSP Experience talk about subtle signs, paranormal experiences, and Julia's journey of discovering that her life was targeted, handled, and multidimensional. She thought she was living a normal life. So is it your turn to go first, Michael? I've already lost track, but we've already kind of talked about it, but not talking about SSP, but just specifically Julia's presentation. I was really proud of Julia because it was hell for her to put that presentation together. She was like, I won't have a Q&A. I'm like, you're having a Q&A. Like behind the scenes, we were going at it a little bit. I'm like, the last thing you want is for me to cut you off when you're live and nobody else is getting bonus time. Like a few minutes is one thing, right? But you don't get an hour or whatever. And so she really buckled right down. And she did go into overtime, but it was okay, because I planned things just in case things did go into overtime. And it was fine. And I think a lot of people were able to resonate with her. And just knowing that, like Sheila basically just finished saying, that even though we can't prove anything all the time, we know that something happened. And that's what I'm really passionate about. I always say this to people, like, who am I? I'm just another person telling a Bigfoot story. I don't have any answers. And when she was talking about those Black Pyramid spaceships, I kind of felt like, oh, maybe that's who I am, because I'm still trying to figure it out too. Like, I know I was like a robot at some point, but I also know that I was some kind of like piece of metal harvested from the earth to make things like robots and ships. And so, and knowing that my dragon was so dark purple that it looked black, and then James the Wizard was talking about purple and black and gold. I was like, ooh, that's kind of calling to me. So, hi, Amy, I see you there in the chat. Michael, what are your thoughts on Julia's presentation?
So, first off, I could not have done it. And I am in the same boat she is. And so I was telling her on her show that she did in her time this morning how amazed and everything. And so she shined a light on stuff that people don't want to see and don't want to acknowledge. And before I go further, I do have something I need to say to Gina about this. Is I have watched several conferences over the years and everything of this disclosure movement coming about, and this or that. And I always see where when it comes to the SSP and stuff that's like traumatic and dark, everybody wants to push it to the side and maybe make it like an afterthought, like one person to the conference on the last day, and it's like, most people are leaving, so it doesn't really matter kind of feel. And I was surprised in Promise of Spring when Chris Latterer was on, and that Gina was putting it in a great, spot of, it's not the afterthought. It was actually, intentionally thought is how it felt. And is giving us space to share this story. So thank you, Gina, for, bringing us a platform where we can talk about this and share it. And now going back to Julia's, presentation, understanding that it is like 5 hours or more worth of information condensed down to 35 minutes. It's impressive what she was able to bring forth and share about her story. And, it really brought light to who she is, but it was so quick that it's like, you almost are like, oh, now, it's like, I felt like this was just a preview to the big event. And so now it's like, I want to go to the big event and see, what's going on. And she and I were talking too, and I had to change my verbiage because I'm so used to the word triggered. And I kept saying to her, oh, I got triggered in a good way. And she's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, why? It was a good thing. And she goes, what are you talking about? And I said, well, a few of your slides like unlocked memories for me. And she was like, oh, well, that's a awakening or remembrance, or she had a different term for it. So I was like, okay, fine, I won't use this word. And so it is a learning of a lingo that if you don't understand it, it's like a lot of what we say goes over the head of people. And so I think the way she presented it, though, everyone could follow along. And there were tidbits like that, like you're talking about the Black Pyramid. I've seen it brought up in other ways and other shows. And so it's like, oh, it was done in a way that it gravitated to people and they were, picking up on what interested them. And nobody, I felt like, had anything bad to say about it, or like came in and was like, oh, and was going to be like, oh, this presentation, or this or that, like we're used to getting when we speak about it. And so that was another thing I noticed is like the chat room was like very supportive and nobody had anything bad to say. And I was like, wow, I'm loving this, because there's always that one person who wants to try and start something and it didn't happen. And I was like, in that moment, I was like, yeah, the dragons are watching over this program, this conference. We're all really protected. And it was done in a nice, I almost want to say sweet way, but that's not like really the right word. But I'm also starting to feel myself rambling, like, I'm hosting. And so I'm going to turn it over to Sheila, because I think I'm just going to just keep going nonstop, because of my affinity with working with Julia too. So.
Right. Sheila, we're turning it over to you. Thoughts on Julia Ankerhaven's presentation?
Bravo, Michael. So now I can ramble. No, I love that. You're so sweet and kind to her. The word that was coming to me was calm. It was a calm energy. It was gentle, So you're right. It was sweet. As I have honey in my tea today that I hardly ever use, but I love it when I do. Think to put it in there, it adds that sweetness. Why not, right? Enjoy. And that was kind of the point that I wanted to make. Well, so yeah, Julia, oh my gosh, my heart was just, I, I just wanted to just hug her. You know, my heart energy was going out to her. I could tell she put so much into that presentation. I mean, the work, yes, but the processing, you know, like she said, she was still processing trauma, and it's a trauma journey for her. And that just, it was the epitome. I felt like it was the reason we were all here yesterday. You know, it was just for to help her heal. I mean, I know that's a pretty big, bold statement, but damn, you know, it's like, what? I mean, why else are we here, right? And Gina, with her story, species, story, medicine, it's all about healing, right? So I don't think any of us get here unscathed. I said that, I think, some point in the chat yesterday, and I told my husband that last night. I said, we all have. I really think we all have been traumatized, if not as a child, later and through the C word, you know, lockdown experience, etc. And he looks at me and he's like so serious, and he said, I've never been traumatized. And as and as soon as the words almost didn't even finish leaving his mouth until my daughter came in and she caught it, and she's like, yes, you were. Remember that time you told me about blah, blah, blah? And he had it, something about with his grandfather or something happened. And I was like, oh, yeah, see, I had totally forgotten about that. So, you know, he's like, well, I wasn't really traumatized. You know, it's that male. Oh, I don't really. It's like, yeah, I know, honey, we love you. You're so strong and masculine and all that. And some of that is him still proving that to himself again after the stroke. So we all.
And I love how Sheila can tune in and hang out with us, and her husband, you know, whatever he rolls his eyes. But even going back to Newgrange, like initially he didn't even want to go, and then so you know it's going to be a good time with Sheila, right? Which is probably why he married you. But Julia sent me a message this morning, just letting me know she wasn't able to make it today. But she told me that she felt really good this morning, and she's like feeling like she's looking good, and not just feeling good, but looking good. So I'm like, oh, I gotta watch the video that she made or whatever, because I told her, I reiterated to her, I said, yesterday you validated yourself, you know, through your own coherence, through your own story medicine. And then even though she was a medicine bearer, we bore witness to that. So the combination, if you will, this algorithm, presenter plus audience equals a sacred, safe space to share medicine. And how you think and feel matters so much. It creates ailments or inspires healing. So I have a belief, and it's my own opinion, that yesterday, through the transformative powers of our story medicine, that she was able to heal a lot of parts of herself. We're finally able, heard all that memory in her body. Was like, yes, thank you. You heard me. Now I can release and go do whatever I need to do, you know. Is her life perfect now? No. But you know what? This business of us not journeying out of the pine tree forest made me think about Julia, because she did a public gemstone reading with me, and sea turtle energy came up. But then I did a collective gemstone reading, and sea turtle energy came up again. And so I feel like a lot of dragon dreamers like Julia, they're on the descent right now, but they're actually behind schedule. They can catch up, but they need to stay focused, right? And so I kind of feel like the pine tree forest somehow is working with time and timelessness so we can check off our list. And I'm really excited this summer, this fall, our great unfolding. But
Gina,
any final thoughts about Julia before we move on, Michael?
So Julia won't mind that I share this, and it is something that happened during the presentation. Is her twin, her trauma twin, as we call them, or I use the term wonder twin sometimes, but in the programs, wrote a message about her on Facebook, talking about her and her role and how it helped him And this was something that neither one of them really ever did. And so while she's presenting, she got a message from someone that said, "Oh my God, you got to read this post." And it was a post on Facebook. And so it totally, you know, threw her into like a shocked and like wow moment of, as she's doing her presentation, her twin is presenting her as well, not in the same way, but it was, for us, it's like a synchronicity. And she was like, oh, and I may be misquoting her on this, but Terry, let me know your thoughts, because you were talking with us this morning about it too on the live. Is I feel like she's viewing coming forward at this conference with you, Gina, sharing this, his sharing about her is synchronistically connected and is like a major step for them. So she is so grateful to the conference to having that happen, that it brought about that kind of connection for those two. That's all I got on that.
Yeah, she told me a bit about that this morning, and I was very wowed by that too, because yesterday I wasn't aware of that, and so there was a lot of synchronicity, even synchronicity that I wasn't aware of, that I'm being made aware of now. And I'm hopeful that when Julia presents at this Basis conference, that there will be synchronicity about me and the Dragon Dreams. Put in a good word for us, okay, Basis people who are going to. And it would be cool if Miles and I tag team administration or something like that, because Julia seems to be a foundation these days for Basis. And I don't really keep track of Basis. And for somebody like me who doesn't keep track, to have an awareness of that, I think is pretty powerful. Okay, who is our next presenter? I feel like Soma was next. Yes. Oh my gosh, Soma. So I loved Soma's presentation, but I thought it was hilarious that the Pleiadians provided a meditation. And this morning I was laughing to myself, and I'm like, Ashtar, was your name Ashtar? But I hope we're on good terms and I didn't offend you yesterday. But I thought it was really powerful because her message, a lot of people talk about the future and whatnot, but she speaks in a way where you can actually wrap your head around it and understand it, and I love when she talks about Jesus, Yeshua, and dragons, because it's from her own personal perspective, right? And so Sheila, it's your turn to go first. Any thoughts about Soma's presentation or the meditation from the Pleiadians?
I loved Soma's voice, and I'll reiterate what you said, ditto what you said. I love the topics and the Pleiadian meditation, and I did laugh as well as you. I was laughing, especially when someone's, I was asked, or the Pleiadians were asked not to channel today. And I thought, how many times has that happened where I've experienced that too. Asked not to do something and then it comes out in another way because we're fractals. So we're going to get that design out there one way or another, whatever message we're supposed to share. As you say, our story medicine is going to come out. That in itself is a tool, right? If you work with just story medicine. Wow.
Yeah, and just so folks out there realize, Soma submitted 2 pre-recorded presentations. She submitted one where like 2 seconds into the presentation, she's channeling. So I'm like, okay, Soma, I can't use this. Then she sent me another one where it was her presentation all about childhood, growing up in the Pleiadians. It was exactly what I wanted. But in the Pleiadians, they still make an appearance through meditation. And somebody told me, I don't remember who this was, but I heard that some ET Star Nation folks are very specific on wording. And I thought, ooh, are the Pleiadians like that? Because respectfully, she didn't channel the meditation, it was a different word. And I thought that's sneaky for the Pleiadians. So I'm just kind of having fun in my own Gina land, and it makes me feel connected to the Pleiadians. Because we should be able to joke around with each other, right, without getting upset. I feel like when you can laugh at yourself, it really is a sign of maturity and poking fun at each other. And she's from Ireland too, right? So, well, her mother moved her there when she was young. I don't remember the exact details. So she defaults to having a connection with goddesses and all the things that we talk about, the Celtic and whatnot too, right? So, and she was tuning in, I believe, from Dublin with us yesterday. So, okay, I just love talking about everybody, and let's turn it over to you, Michael. Any thoughts about Soma or the meditation from the Pleiadians?
So, one thing I will share from doing channelings with Laura as Starseed Lolo, we are starting to see the star beings as being a more fun, like the jovial mantis. They love to party. So it's like, okay, so when they're coming through, we know that, where the energy is going to be going. Or, the ant people love music. And so when the Pleiadians came through, I was like, with being one, part of them and having that experiences, I was like, oh, I knew we were in for something, but I wasn't sure how it was going to unfold. But I was like, kind of in the back of my mind going, you guys are sneaky, yes, but in a fun way and in a way that, no harm was going to, come. Like they weren't going to override Gina's request and take over. But when I heard the word meditation, I started laughing and I was like, oh, yeah, I know what this is. There it is. And so it's like, but I feel like they were doing it, though, not to kind of be like the trickster or anything. I think they were doing it to show, hey, we're fun. We can have fun too. We can laugh too. We're not so different from you. So here, here's a way we can show you this. And it did. It got us all laughing. It got us all in a lighter mood. And one of the things I will share that ties in with Soma's presentation a little bit is laughter raises the energy, and they're wanting us to raise our energies. And we always think, okay, I have to do shadow work, I have to do, these processes of breath work and these big elaborate rituals to raise our energy. And they're like, you can spend a minute laughing and raise it just as much. And so they're showing us, new ways to uplift ourselves and, like move forward in life. And I think it was a beautiful way how she was able to share her story a little bit and bring forth, how, the work that she does impacts her and brings light to it, but presented them in a way that people now, I feel like after they watch this, will go, oh, she's talking to them. Oh, I wonder what, fun, we're going to have with them. And so that's where I think was the beauty of her presentation, was it was shining a new light on a culture that we don't really know a lot about, because everybody claims they're channeling this person or that person, and so you never know. And she just, I'm going to say this in a way that I hope it comes across the way I'm meaning it from my heart, is she brings an authenticity to it, to where when you hear her talk, it's somebody else. It's not, she's just going through the motions to try and gain fame like some people do. So that's where the other aspect is, she's not used to putting herself out there. And so it was a big step for her. And I know this from having her as a guest on my show, that it is really cool seeing her showcasing what she can do in different ways. And so that's, thank you, Gina, for, giving her the space to do that.
It is my pleasure. And you know what? So full disclosure, behind the scenes, I said a little prayer to the Pleiadians the night before the conference. And I was like, look, okay, tomorrow is the big day and it's about Soma. It is not about the Pleiadians, okay? It is about Soma. She is shining her light, not your light, her light. Like, I didn't mean to have an attitude, but I did. Because like I said, she sent me 2 videos in advance, so she set the intention. And I told the Pleiadians, I said, if you folks start channeling and take over her presentation, then I'm going to magically appear on the stage and tell it like it is. Because if Soma is living a lifestyle where she can't talk or function without, randomly Pleiadians, or who's in charge of the biological one known as Soma? Soma are the Pleiadians. And I started to get upset about that because I'm passionate about mind reprogramming. And I do feel a little sensitive when people are channeling. Are they channeling being the open, hollow bone, or somebody taking advantage? So me and the Pleiadians, well, me anyways, I was getting vocal about that kind of stuff the night before. So when she did the meditation, I laughed. I didn't make the connection. So I thank you, Michael, for making that connection. Laughter is one of the best medicines. And it's actually one of the unmaker's tools, is to laugh. And they always leave us in love. Well, you know what? Sounds like they're leaving us in laughter as well, to really raise that vibration. And it made me personally feel more connected to Soma. And it made me feel more connected to the Star Nations, because she commented that just for a moment, like when I said Atar's name, I don't even remember the guy's name, but like the main guy that she channels, she had like electrical stuff going on, like it got attention. And I kind of felt intimidated, like, oh, that's me. But I was like, yeah, that's me. I was heard. The Pleiadians hear me. Ashtar, that's his name. Woo-hoo. And not through me, but through somebody else validating. And that's a huge part of the Dragon Dream Soul Tribe Collective and all of my content merging together. And people like Sheila connecting with people like Michael and Julia, who don't even know each other. But now that they're getting to know each other, it's like, oh, look at all these similarities, right? So clearly I'm very passionate. But wow, so many wows, right? Okay, let's move on to Missy. No, sorry, not Missy yet. Slavka and then Missy. So Slavka, the natural sentient, her video was learning self-love through the wisdom of wounds, trauma release, emotional healing, soul shrinking, self-sabotage, and the healing power of self-love. Her presentation was hands down phenomenal. She talked about things I personally am passionate about, rules of the mind, feeling stagnant and whatnot. But I have to say, like, content aside, Slavka had a very nice pace. We talked behind the scenes about slowing it down, breathing, but then she actually took in those tips and tricks and applied them. And I felt like a hypocrite because I speed talk, right? But Julia and I had a conversation, Anchor Haven and I had a conversation a while ago now about how, like, for me personally, when I speed talk, it's a sign of my intelligence. Information is coming hard and fast. But I recognize that I need to stop and pause and breathe if I want to be effective. And my own effectiveness and quality gets lost in my own speediness, So I felt really happy for Slavka because of her content, but also because the actual delivery. And I felt like there was a few times she almost got emotional, which would have been fine. But I felt like she had to, like, own the present moment here and there and really, like, step into it and assert to herself that she was going to get through this presentation. And to me, that was very powerful because it reminded me of Julia, like just needed to really buckle down and shine your light and speak your truth. And she did, all the presenters did, but Slavka, Missy, and Julia have a lot less experience than Soma and Sheila, being in front of people and whatnot. So anyways, I'm over talking again, but Sheila, what are your thoughts on Slavka, the natural sentient, and her presentation?
Oh, well, I think she was one of the one. Yes, she was. She had her name, right? Slavic. So Slavka had,
Yes,
had like a
Slavka.
Slavic accent, if I'm saying that right. So I didn't know. First I thought, oh, she's Russian. She's from Russia. And then I thought, well, she might be from another Slavic country, so what does that matter? Well, my husband was married to a Russian before me. So so I tend to pick up on, I know,
You don't have to feel threatened by Slavka or anything, Sheila. It's okay.
I'm putting off in this right now, but I say that with love. Nothing that he doesn't know. We talk about all the time. We get through what we get through with laughter. So, but I know Michael's just like, oh no. Yeah. So, but anyway, no, it was a good thing because, I wouldn't have known where Ukraine is. I know a lot of people wouldn't have known where it is actually, but Moldovan wine from Georgia, the country Georgia. We have friends that left Canada actually and moved to Georgia and now are in Russia, a family, and they're farming and they have a YouTube channel, et cetera, et cetera. So, there's so many good things about people from every country, I'm sure. It's just that once you get to know someone, and I never met Richard's ex-wife, but I know her through him because they still communicate on somewhat of a regular basis. And usually it's questions about immigration or politics or the government, things like that. And they weren't married for too long. I don't know, 3 years, whatever. Not my story, right? But again, I guess when I heard her voice, I'm so focused on people's voices that I immediately just thought of my husband's ex-wife, and I just thought, oh, I wonder what country she's from. And then I thought, well, I'm not going to start chatting about all that. And it's not about that, And I have to.
But you know what? You're on the right track, Sheila, because Slavka talked about scarcity mindset, and it doesn't matter where you live, but knowing the challenges in the Ukraine and whatnot, and just the whole area that Slavka is living in, right? Your mind was going down that road. It was being presented in a way of your husband's ex-wife, like facing challenges, right? And the need to reach out. And that was exactly what her presentation was about. So even though your brain part was focused on her voice, your heart part was still able to translate and make sense of it. So I find that really interesting that happened,
That perspective really helps. Thank you, Gina. Yes. I think eventually I was going to get there, right? But it's like sometimes the spiral in me. Blame it on the spiral curls. Thanks, Mom and Dad. But yeah, and my ancestors, can't forget about the grandparents and great grandparents. But yes, so I loved it because she brought some of this all in, and it every time that's what I was going to say earlier about Julia Anchor Haven. So we're always peeling the layers of the onion, right? So in healing, we're always just peeling back those layers and healing the seemingly endless freaking layers, but whatever. So as we peel those layers, that's another layer. I brought that in just by the tone of her voice and her accent. And I'm like, ooh, she drew me in immediately. This is the point I was going to make. She drew me in immediately. I wanted to hear more. I wanted to see, again, like, where do I resonate with her? Where do we share that bandwidth, the frequency, right? So, yes, her story, the scarcity mindset is huge because I grew up with that as well. Even little things like going to the grocery store with Mom and no, we can't buy that right now because we can't afford it. and some of the things. It's so true that very many of us, even if we did not personally experience lack, my parents were raised by parents who lived through the Great Depression. And so that's programmed in. There's some portion there he goes. He's trying to get through and I'm blocking. They see you, dear.
Yeah, you're famous now. But for what it's worth, Sheila, you talk about judgment a lot and how we're always like our worst enemy. We're our number one judge, right? And we shouldn't be. And that was a powerful statement that Slavka made at some point, was like that, what was the biggest obstacle in her way? She was the biggest obstacle in her way. So, it really resonated.
We all are, right? That's what I've learned
Yeah.
since 2008. Get out of our own way and everything else will take care of itself. We're often in our own way. Oh gosh, I'm going to be crying. I'm laughing so hard.
Tears of joy, thankfully. It's not always like that, Michael, your thoughts on Slavka's presentation?
So, a couple things that I picked up on was in the beginning, and she was saying, if this resonates with you or if you can relate to this, put this number. Well, it didn't register with me at first that she said put a number, and so I was like, yeah, I resonate with that. And then I started noticing everyone putting the number, and I was like, oh yeah, 1, okay. And then she was like, if this, is, and then put a 2, and if this is 3. And what I found kind of humorous, though, was as we were going through hers, people were joining in and people were commenting the numbers. And they're all like, what are these numbers for? And I was like, well, if what she's talking about resonated with you, you're supposed to pick one of these 3 numbers, how it resonates with you. And I was like, please don't ask me to define what 1, 2, and 3 was, because that was a while ago and I don't remember. And so I was like, going, yeah, it was kind of funny to see the chat room like being lost and confused coming in late, because they're like, what are these 1, 2, and 3s? And it's like, yeah, that's a good question. As the moderator, I can't help you. I'm sorry. I wish I could, but I couldn't. And it was just a little humorous for me to watch and be like, yeah. And then I noticed, people started commenting, oh, so and so did this too. And that's really great how it's, engaging the audience. And I had to go, yeah, look at, the chat room is all alive more than most of the presentations, because they're all trying to figure out. And it was like clever how she did that. And
Yeah.
I also think too, she brought up concepts that we are all dealing with in different ways through another light. And it's like, I use the term, you can go down the layer of the onion, but then when you hit a certain point and you think you've done it, enough at this point, and you're here at, and you feel like you're at the core, well, guess what? It comes out on the side and it comes out in a new way. And now you got another layer to go down and look at, and new ways to look at it. But she was presenting it, though, as much as, the topic by definition is like, wow, we're talking about losing energy and having your energy taken from you and having, being, suppressed. And the whole day has been about lifting up, but she didn't bring us down. It's like she was like, this is what it looks like. And she was using terms. And one of the things that I had to commend her about, and I will be talking about this on our panel discussion, as from our perspective, I asked a question just that, we ran out of time to ask, and she answered it in the private chat, and I was meaning to go and grab it and post it and put it in the main chat because the answer was so beautiful. And when I finally got a moment where I could grab it in the private chat and I was about to post it, I looked and there was Slavka in the chat room and going, "Hey Michael, here's the answer." And I was like, "Oh, thank you for putting that in there," because that piece I think was so important, and a lot of you may not realize it. She's talking about forgiveness, and I raised the question, is there a difference between forgiveness and acceptance? And the way she answered it, it was like it made it very clear where they're same but splinter. And so I feel like a lot of people will get great medicine from seeing that comment.
Yeah, that's great feedback. I forgot about the put a one in a chat. Slavka was kind of like Missy and Julia. Those three wanted like 2 hours each, all day if I let them. And they had a hard time understanding, like, there's an hour block, but you only talk for 35 minutes because then we need Q&A time, and that, makes the whole hour, right? Plus you want extra backup time in case you fall behind schedule or whatever. So when I was working with Slavka behind the scenes, she was very scattered with her presentation. All the information was there, but very scattered. So I helped her organize it. And she wanted to engage with the chat. And I'm like, you don't have time for that, Slavka. Like, she really wanted to be there, right? So I told her, I said, why don't you say something like, put a 1 in the chat if you think this. Put a 2 in the chat if you think that. And I totally forgot about that. And then, like Michael described, when it started to unfold, people weren't really participating. And then randomly people were like, what is this about? And me too, Michael, I was caught up in trying to explain it, but it's like, this doesn't matter anymore. We're moving on with this presentation. So, and also, Slavka and all the presenters, the power about their story medicine was that they didn't take us there to any blood and gore. They didn't take us there where it was like, here's the traumatic story where everything just is very sad. Like, no, we focused on highlighting things without being stagnant in the negative storyline, because to me, that's the testament of being the healed healer. It's okay to cry and whatnot. It's okay to get upset every now and then. But if you have a presenter that's getting into blood and gore, to me, what are we doing? Are we entertaining or are we providing healing? If you get a presenter that is just focusing on the trauma part of the story, well, have you really moved past it? So to me, these presenters, that's why I call them the medicine bearers, because they are the healed healers. They're sharing now, so super, super powerful. The final presenter we had was Missy Hill. She's enjoying a movie right now, but her presentation was great. I wasn't expecting her to take us on a guided journey. So it worked out because it was synchronicity with the Pine Tree Forest, 2 guided journeys. Yeah. But I thought it was a clever way to take us to Mount Mitchell and back to gain perspective from being on ground, just like she is as a grid worker. And she could, like, Missy could basically host a show 24/7, I think, right? She has a lot to share. We dialed it back. She wanted to show all kinds of photos and get into all kinds of stories with everybody, but we really, really dialed it back. And she even wrapped up her presentation early. So it was like, but she was able to say everything she wanted to say, so a testament to the power of planning in advance. And me just in this moment reiterating a huge, big dragon thank you to everybody for putting up with my crap, which was pretty good crap to put up with. I think it was pretty good crap. And then, you know what, that extra homework, right? Submitting the presentation in advance. really helped to make the day possible, you know? So, Sheila, yeah, we're back to you. Your turn to go first. Any thoughts about Missy's presentation?
Um, hmm. Where to begin, right? No, I really felt like I was traveling, and I think I had a question at one point about there was oh, that place that I see. I don't even know how to explain it because I that was the question. Is it a rock? Is it a place? Was it carved out of the side of a cliff? It looked like it was some of those places where the monks go up a mountainside and they build something. They build a monastery into the side of a mountain. So it was something like that. But it was this large obelisk shape. It was like the corner, and then there was almost then another corner down at the ocean. Does anybody remember that picture? And I forget where she said it was, but that just totally intrigued me because I was following those videos of the obelisks showing up in different places all over the world there for a while. And I thought, is that a man-made carved into the hill, or is that, you know what I mean? Like I was so intrigued by that.
I don't remember the name of the place, but she said that's where she heard voices at some point too, and getting connections. Yeah.
There you go. So that makes sense, right? That I would be drawn to that particular spot. But I'd never seen that or heard of that place before. So I was really intrigued by that. I just love her anyway. I love her energy, the way she presents, again, her voice, her professionalism. You can tell she's spent years, not only just in this world and on these subjects, but experiencing it, living it, and then presenting it with on the radio shows and different things, and now in podcasts. So I'm really excited to follow her. I think almost all the pictures fascinated me in one way or another. So I was really like, I was sitting there too, like, go back. And then I'm like, no, don't mess with the energy, Sheila, but I'm like, go forward, go back. No, wait, go to that one. Oh, I want to, you know what I mean? So I felt like I was a jumble too, through some of that. But I really enjoyed it. Again, I want to watch the replay. I want to be able to stop on certain things, pause, and even take a screenshot for myself. But just to have those visuals, those images, like Michael was saying, do some astral travel to those sites. I totally believe in that because I had a friend that went to the Monroe Institute. That was another part of that story with Richard and the stroke. Was he asked if he could do a healing on Richard from things he learned at Monroe Institute. And it takes a lot of time to go there in person and take those classes, and they're expensive too. So for somebody to do that, and then he was the person who went with me into the tomb at Newgrange when I went for winter solstice. The four of us, he and his wife and me and Richard, went as a foursome to share costs of like flight, hotel, and those kinds of things, cabs, whatever. And we ate dinner together almost every night. And we had another whole week in Dublin. So we love Dublin. Shout out to Soma. But yeah, so anyway, he offered to do a healing on Richard, right? And he needed a photograph. So there you go. So they do use that. And some of these things I just pick up, I didn't go to the classes, but I pick it up from the conversations with people, right? I'm a sponge. And so when he said, he asked our permission, which I knew from Reiki that we're supposed to do, right? So he asked Richard's permission and mine. He got the picture, the recent photograph from Richard, and then he started doing healings, and Richard did improve and has continued to improve, as you just saw, from him climbing over the bed to get around me. But yeah, it'll be 4 years October since he had the stroke, and he has probably 95% back, like, of everything. He had to relearn how to walk because when it happened, he couldn't walk. He just gone, right? He could talk barely. His voice, like the volume of his voice. Another reason the voice is so important to me, not only that I'm a singer, but because when he lost that, he was at a whisper. And it's like, that's kind of scary. Like to even know that you're that close to maybe going to the other side, but that you may lose something that a mechanism that we have to communicate with other people. So anyways, not to
Oh, I love that. I love the picture connection. And you know what? I bet if you just sent Missy a Facebook message, probably just
Oh
send
yeah.
you those pictures, you know? And yeah, the voice is powerful. Like when I had my severe panic attack, that was something that definitely took a hit. And I'm still recovering from it, which is why I find myself shouting when I'm talking. I don't mean to, but I shout because when my voice was like really on the low side, it was more than a whisper, but it was very low. I had to really like shout it out. And sometimes my voice sounds, well, often it sounds very growly sounding. And that's why, because I have no energy. And that's one of the reasons why I pre recorded all the biographies and whatnot, because I knew I don't think it's realistic for me to be hosting and talking for 10 hours straight. And then, you know, when you get nervous and then you screw up, I didn't want to risk that either. So that's why there was a mix of me pre-recording videos of myself. Yeah. Oh, and I'm just having a funny memory too. I'm looking forward to catching the replay. I was scrolling through it yesterday, but the outfit that I wore yesterday is the same outfit that I wore in the videos that I made for the break, but there were subtle differences. I forget, like I was wearing different gloves. And so at one point I'm like, spot the differences and let me know in the chat. Just remembering that now. Hilarious. Okay, we're almost done here. We've been going for about 2 hours. Michael, how about you? Any thoughts about Missy's presentation?
So I have the fortunate of having her recently on my show, and so some of what she was talking about, I kind of was getting like a refresh to it, and some of it was new. And I remember hers through the tech rehearsal too, you know, her presentation, because the cat photos like stood out to me. But the one thing that really stood out to me about her presentation that I think a lot of people kind of missed, and it's only because it was such a small nuance, is all of her adventures were kind of through her cat's eyes, and what they, you know, and that they would go on the journeys, and if they didn't get to go, it was, oh, you know, this was the one spot we, you know, we didn't get to go with this one, and oh, now we have, I think it's, I get it confused because at times it says like she says Arthur and then she says Arthur. And so I'm not sure which name the cat has now, but he's picking up the mantle of going on all these adventures with her. But I think that's, you know, to me was something unique to go, well, yeah, we always go to like places and stumble into things. Like she stumbled into Bull Run, and I thought that was funny because that's happened, you know what I mean, where I'm somewhere and I'm like, oh, this is this. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know where I was either. And it's funny how life unfolds that way, but I thought it was really special how she tied it to her cats. And that's kind of what stuck out to me was, you know, sharing her experiences but tying it into the cat's life and how they would be on the road and this is what they're doing, and doing the grid work is important, but it was like I keep defaulting back to, yeah, the cat is what sticks in my mind.
I love the whole cat story. Um, and I agree. The background that she had was awesome. The I told her, I said, you need to write a children's book because just the fact that it's about the cats telling the stories and the two cats tag teaming because the cat has like a past life that they're living and reflecting on, meanwhile, simultaneously getting information from her other cat. And I'd have to ask Missy again because I can't keep track of it all. She did explain it to me, but it was something like Arthur, like King Arthur and the knights, you know, the round table. But then there was also Thor, like the thunder god Thor. So Arthur, and then she calls the cat Thor just as a nickname. And those Halloween costumes too with the pumpkin suit. But yeah, like her presentation was almost like the cat's presentation and Missy telling the story, really, you know. And I think it's hilarious, like when she had her map up and basically all but one state the cat has visited. Like this cat has traveled more than a lot of people have, right? So that was really powerful, her story medicine. So after Missy, we closed Sacred Space. When I was bringing back my Viracocha, I felt a lot of joy, you know, like I felt like, because when you open Sacred Space, you open around yourself first, and then you extend it on to whoever wants to receive it. And when you close, you bring it back from the others, and then you close up your own. And when I was closing up the others, it was like people didn't want me to close the Sacred Space. Like, even though we just finished spending like 10 hours together, people didn't want it to end, you know? And finally, it was kind of like there was a playfulness, like a little tug of war. And then finally, the energies just kind of went like up and came back to me. And then I was able to close my own with ease. So I just thought that was interesting. And then I brain farted it out and I forgot to close the Pine Tree Forest, but it seems like it worked out anyways. But then we had movies playing, right? So we had Lushing, my first movie, which if you're not familiar with the story Lushing, it might have been hard to follow. But basically, Lushing, the intruders come in, and simultaneously I get trained to fight, but I'm also getting like killed at the same time. And we learn how the Lushers consume food through their fat bodysuits. They create one fat bodysuit and the energy disappears. And then there was something about a tooth. So hopefully people will read that story, Lushing, which again is free on my Buy Me a Coffee. And you can also get the whole Scary Dreams book 8 if you wanted to order that. And then, Terry's saying, Lushing made me uncomfortable, but I think that was the point. Yeah, it made me uncomfortable too. And you know what? It's my own content that makes me uncomfortable. And I don't watch scary movies. And out of all the movies that I could have kicked things off with, like I felt really like I need to do Lushing, you know? So Jason H was supposed to help me out. It didn't work out, but being the professional that Jason H is, I'm an amateur. So is Michael. Michael helped me with the second one. But Jason H actually has a professional background in film and cinematography. And so I look forward to how Jason H is going to play around with my content. The second movie was called, and just to wrap up the first movie, Lushing, I used Starseed Lolo, Laura Ferguson's song, Dark Night of the Soul, and she gave me permission to use that. The second movie, I used her song, The Dragon, but the movie was called Project 30 Isis Unity Consciousness. And it was basically me going through a shitty time, having confusing dreams. And then Michael and I realized we had too much content. So we just narrowed it down to like me dreaming about the Gnome King, finding the gemstones at the beach. Now I'm doing gemstone readings. There is a part in the story where basically I was getting made fun of. There was lots of trolls. I couldn't even go online without people telling me to F off and stuff. Like, it was really bad last year. And then I was like, who's going to help me, you know? And then that's captured in the movie. Because in real life, my dreams and my real life are bridging. And so I'm like, let's do this. And so I started doing gemstone readings on Michael's show. And then at some point, Michael and Julia started hosting me, and the Melted Broadcast recently hosted me, and I got permission from Tony to put that there. So that was really special. And I think overall it was a smash hit of a Dragon-tastic day. So I don't have any more thoughts to share. Just really resonating. Today's the new moon, so I'm just going to enjoy taking the rest of the day off. And I look forward to tomorrow making some shorts and posting that publicly. And the replay is available. You can get the replay now. It's $10 Canadian for the replay. But anybody who has the links, like you, Sheila, you were mentioning you want to replay, it's the same link for the replay. And you have that. It was in your Facebook Messenger and email. So just don't share it publicly. to honor people who did pay and those who are paying the $10 for the replay. And I think I mentioned this before, December 21st, it's going to be available for free. So eventually everything is free, but this is just a bit of an incentive right now and a way to pull the Soul Tribe together. I'm working with Pull Energy. There's no push here. So any final thoughts from you, Sheila? And then we'll do final thoughts from Michael. But anything you want to wrap up, Sheila? It's okay if you don't have any final thoughts either, but let's turn it over to Sheila.
Just to say thank you so very much. This was really a first time for me as well to be involved in a conference like this all day, and one that was charging a fee. The Pull Energy is new to me, so I've learned this from you. And I think it's good because only the people who really resonate with the material, even if they're only vaguely familiar with the material that's going to be shared or some of the speakers, it's going to help because it's always opening, right? And I'm all about that opening, continuing to broaden the expanse of our consciousness. And like Terry was making the point about the scary movies, a lot of times it's about what you can handle when you can handle it, right? So Gina, you're a teacher, you've taught little children, kindergartners and such. So, you have to crawl before you walk. And I talked about that a bit yesterday, and that you don't just hop up out of the crib. Most children don't anyway, and start walking. I know there's an exception to every rule. I always have to say that because there's, like Michael said, that one person that's going to go, but wait, I did, or whatever, like my husband going, I wasn't traumatized. Well, no, because he didn't. He may have been traumatized by something that would have traumatized me or someone else, but he himself processed it quickly and didn't interpret it to be trauma. So there's a reason. And I work with people too. I work with a gentleman who's an author in the UK, and we meet on Zoom for a half an hour every week. And we don't charge each other. We're helping each other. We're lifting each other up to be able to get our content finished, because I procrastinated on We're All Connected, that book, for a year. I wrote half of it and then I stopped because I said something in my head went, nobody's buying the other books, so what the hell? Why waste my time, right? That wasn't the point though. The point was the learning and the growing, like Julia did, and I did too, putting that presentation together. I rewrote my story about the ex-husband 3 times because I was going to say ex-husband, failed marriage. And then I went, wait, it wasn't a failed marriage. It was a so-called failed marriage. There was a lot I learned from that marriage, right? So again, undoing and unraveling. And so that's where I'll leave it. It's just, I invite people to open and experience more, and watch how you reframe things, watch how you interpret things, and give space. Thank you, Sheila.
Those are great words, Sheila. Thank you so much for that. Michael, any final thoughts from you? I think I cut myself out there a little bit. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? But any final thoughts from you, Michael?
So final thoughts would be is one, when you were like in the beginning, you were asking, everybody's, who's going to do what and everything. And I remember, after Promise of Spring going, hey, if you need a speaker, I'll step up, and I can do another one because, I had so much fun doing it my first time. And next thing I know, I was like, well, now I've done the moderator role in Summer Days. And going through that, it's like, and I know in the back of my mind, there's 2 more conferences yet because, well, in my opinion, because I don't have the means to come up to Canada right now to do the in-person one, unfortunately, but I can still help in the background with everything. And I will say that Gina and I have already started talking about little things that we're cooking up together, collaborating on for the fall conference. And fortunately, we get a little bit of break time to before we get started on everything. But one thing that I want to share with everyone who has presented or is thinking about presenting, Gina puts together a little thing that has an outline of this is what you need to turn in, this is when it's due. So and you're given lots of time to prepare. It's not a, hey, the conference is in 3 weeks, and I need your, presentation, at least, a week in advance. You're given months to prepare in actuality for this. So she does everything she can to help the speakers put on a great presentation. And so I just want to reiterate that for anyone who is like, I've never presented, I don't think I could present like these people could, that she does help and support every step of the way and does, work with you and give you reasonable time to do everything. And we also live in a world where, as Gene and I put it, life happens or shit happens. And as long as you communicate, we can work with that. And she works with it. And so it's not, she will drive, but she's not driving like the taskmaster. She's driving like the friend that's just being supportive along the way and just nudging you along and bringing you out of your comfort zone in a healthy, safe, beautiful way. And so I just want to say hats off to you, Gina, for a second awesome Dragontastic conference. And on top of that, I can't wait to see what comes in the fall. And if you need a speaker, you just got to ask. And I will help moderate too. So I will be back for the fall in one way or another, or maybe in two ways. We'll see.
Yeah. I appreciate that so much, Michael. And it's so funny because as soon as I started asking for speakers for summer days, Michael's like, oh, I can be a speaker. And I'm like, okay, Michael, I appreciate that, but let's try and change it up. I can have you as a backup speaker. And even though we're just about to say goodbye, guess who showed up? Julia Anchorhaven. So if you need to go, Sheila, Michael, I get it. But if you can stay, stay. I know Terry is tuning in with us. Julia, I hope your ears were burning because we were talking about you, holding you in the highest light. Really enjoyed your presentation. But let's hear from Julia. You did it. Woohoo! Check off list. Tell us about how you feel.
It was very triggering, to be honest. The whole process was very activating and healing. So activating in a good way, but triggering in a healing way. And so I did enjoy it. It was a great conference. It was very well organized. Gina, you always do a great conference. Everybody had fantastic contributions, so that was so awesome. And I know a lot of us went through some very deep healing. I'm not sure what's going with my background, why it's so glitchy. I feel like there's something in the room with me, maybe. But yeah, everybody did amazingly well. It was so good. Lots of great positive vibes in the chat all day. Yeah, so fantastic moderators, Michael and Missing Time 420, and then loads of like familiar faces in there. So it was brilliant. Yeah, so well done, everybody. I've literally just come off another live stream with Thomas Mikey Jensen talking about Mars and satellite imagery of Mars. So yeah, go check that out, guys. That's so good. I'm looking forward to the next conference. Is that in September?
Yeah, it's going down in September, September 19th, and then December 12th. So those are going to be the big days. And hopefully you won't be conferenced out by the time your basis presentation comes into play there, So we've already talked about like, summer days, but something that's interesting is, I don't know if you noticed this, but we did not actually journey out of the pine tree forest yesterday.
Yes.
So that's my fault. Brain fart
Are
on
we
my
still there?
my part. So we're still there. Yeah, we're still there. And I was thinking about you because the sea turtle energy is very high with you right now, right? And there was that public gemstone reading you did. And I did a collective gemstone reading too, and sea turtle energy came up. So there's a lot of dragon dreamers in your shoes that got some fire under their butts because the journey has begun. You're behind schedule, but you can catch up. It's going to be fine, but you do need to move it, right? So I kind of feel like there's synchronicity going on, like the powers that may be are going to help out with time and space and smooth this over, and I thought that was really interesting. So like from my perspective, I made it a point to go counterclockwise. So if things are feeling counterclockwise or kind of backwards this summer, this fall, that's why, if it gets too much, come and see me. I'll rewind it clockwise for you. But I think folks will be good until the September conference. Any special highlights, Julia, or takeaways from you?
No, I just liked everybody's. It was quite interesting though, because I was talking about my super soldier journey and being connected to my dyad, who's my SSP brother, Drago Reed. And at the same time I was doing that, he put a very public post out on Facebook, basically supporting me, not really knowing what I was up to, not knowing what I was doing or anything like that. And he felt that he wanted to share about our healing journey, right? So when I came off my talk, I had messages from my friends saying, "Have you seen what Drago Reed's just put out?" And whereas it's funny because as I was talking about how we have a telepathic connection, he was literally drawing on our connection to put this very public post out about our connection, the things that we've been through. So it's as if the healing was really spreading through our bond, and he felt that as well. And he and I, we are siblings, but we're like real brothers and sisters. So we're not close. We don't talk to each other often, maybe once a month or something. I'll send him a message and he might respond, but we're very private. We do very similar work. So we don't really feel the need that we need to contact each other all the time or anything like that. So it was the synchronicity on it. It just blew me away that he felt he wanted to do that for me, and I felt I wanted to talk about the bond we have in my presentation. So we were totally in sync. So very, very healing for both of us, I think. So he felt the ripple of the work I was doing, and he's in America and I'm here in the UK. So it really was amazing. Like the story medicine on that was fantastic, I think. Yeah. So, and I woke up a few hours later and I looked different. I looked younger, refreshed, right? So a lot of healing happened after the conference when I crashed out and my whole face looked different. Like I'd released worries from my face that had been weighing me down. So very liberating, Gina, very liberating. Yeah.
Yeah, you look good and you seem lighter, and I'm not just saying that. And we talked about that too. We were talking about you behind your back, holding you in the highest light.
That's okay.
But like you were sharing publicly on your show this morning, so I got to watch the show and catch up on that. But you shared publicly, and then also in a private message to me, you shared publicly about this, and it's a testament to the fact that we heal with the earth. We are the earth. How you think and feel matters. You can cause your own ailments, or you can inspire your very own healing, or you can cause the ailments of others or help to inspire. And so clearly you inspired your own healing. The fact that people bore witness to you, the medicine bearer, was providing healing as well. And I wonder if Drago looks better, is feeling lighter this morning too. I don't know. I don't really know him.
In the here and now, he's younger than me, but in the programs, I'm always younger than him in my body. But here now, I'm actually older than him in this biological form. But yeah, so it just shows the interconnectedness, that web of energy. So as I heal, we all heal together, and that's basically the message on my channel. So you're not alone. We all heal together. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be cool to have him as a speaker. I know he likes to talk for a good 5 to 7 hours, maybe
Well,
even 20,
I
but he only gets 35, okay?
because I literally when I
Doesn't
was
matter
trying
if
to
he's
make
your
my
brother, 35.
yeah, I know. When I was trying to make my presentation, I sent him a voice note and I was like, dude, I just don't know how you do it. I can understand now why you need at least 2 hours minimum, because just trying to get into the multidimensionality and everything that we've gone through in the past together, it's a lot. And you guys saw I touched on it very, very quickly in 40 minutes, didn't I? It was a lot. But he's a big part of my healing journey, and we were separated deliberately to keep us kind of disempowered deliberately. So once we kind of united back together last year, we both became more empowered. When we met in December in the UK, bam, we synchronized our energies. Yeah. So it's like, so he got more clarity on the memories he already had, and I started to get that flood of memories coming in for me. So it just shows that like the darker forces, the regressors on the planet, they deliberately try to separate us, but it doesn't work. Does not work. We find each other. Love always finds a way, whether it's a sibling bond or a soul family bond. It doesn't matter. We are all interconnected.
And that's just
Yeah.
that's like Sheila's presentation. We're all connected, but also we were having a conversation. I don't remember if it was my show or your show, but Kit Kat was basically the color purple, and purple is always there. It's just not always expressed, but it is
Yeah.
very much there in the primary colors, represented as a secondary color that comes through. Yeah. Wow. Sheila, do you want to say anything, final thoughts to Julia, or I don't know, we were literally saying goodbye, Julia, and then you came on. So, Michael and Julia, for those of you who might just be tuning in, Sheila and Michael had plenty of time to talk. Okay. We're not favoring Julia right now. But, Sheila, did you want to say anything, or you're good, or?
Well, Julia, just watch the replay of this. But yeah, the couple things that pop up for me is to remember that the healing is an onion, and Michael's already said that y'all talk about that quite a bit. So you're continuing to peel layers. Be gentle, be kind to yourself. You are such a heart. I just got to tell you that while you were speaking and presenting yesterday, my heart, and I told everybody earlier, my heart just felt like I wanted to hug you. I'm a hugger. But, I've had to restrain that after moving here these last couple years. There's a whole story. I won't go into it. But my heart was just like leaping out at you energetically. I'm just like, oh my God, number one, the work you put into this, and then when you spoke about how much healing and you're still healing the trauma, and I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, just the process of putting the presentation together is healing, right? Because you're kind of like, you scrub off a little bit of the scab, or something, you need a little blood or whatever, right? There's your blood and gore, Gina. That's all I'll say about that. But then it heals over, right? And then you're okay and you feel good and you're lifted up, and then something else will maybe come to mind in a few days, and there'll be a little bit more scrubbing, and so it's just that ongoing, just like when we cut ourselves, how long it takes for that to heal in the human body. But think about how many layers there are to us, right? And I spoke earlier in terms of that plasma. And so when you said that, I just got the ripples through my body when you said that. Drago, right? So when he was like feeling that already, like you're doing work here in this logistical place, and he's there doing whatever. And yet he's picking up on all of that because you're expanding. So your aura, if you want to say it that way, or plasma, or whatever it is, the ethereal gooiness, right? The substance, it's doing its work. So if we just give space, right? Time, those kinds of things. I know these are big concepts maybe, but I'm trying to bring it back to earth. So, in the practical terms, you're doing what you're doing. He's doing what he's doing, picking up on you. You're picking up on him. The energies feed each other, I suppose, in some way or another mechanism. But my gosh, I mean, it just like all of that just sort of flew off the screen for me. And I just thought, I just love her. She's so wonderful because you're just doing this work. And when you're healing yourself, I feel like the ripples go out and other people in similar situations to yourself that was totally like, this is not of me and Sheila's mind because I knew nothing about this really and how deep it goes, other than watching Stranger Things. And, you know, I mean, I know like the tertiary, see, I can't even say it right, but I don't know the in depth. And so I was amazed at your knowledge and what you know and what you've contained
Yeah.
within your mind, because you're just like how much you've been invested and how much you were. I mean, I don't think you, well, maybe, see, I won't even say you.
Yeah, I
chose
didn't even make
to
reference
choose
to
it.
Stranger Things, but I could have, because I do actually have a character in that TV show. But Stranger Things is not just based on like Project Phoenix; it's based on other facilities which are very similar. So I actually have different versions of me that have been through the same thing that they reference in that TV show, which is a very light introduction, isn't it, Michael? It's a very light introduction
Light.
to what we all went through. It really was, yeah. So they're basically using an archetype. So they're picking like the energy, the testimony of everybody and making it into one character in a way. So yeah, I didn't even touch on that in my presentation because I like to focus on the healing aspect, the moving forward. Cloning is a big part for me because I have real world experience of seeing myself as a clone. So not many people have that or remember that. Yeah.
So you see, it's that thing I said earlier, Gina and Michael, right? About
Yes.
when you meet someone, and in this conference, I
No.
do, even though we weren't physically together in the same room, I feel like we met Julia where she is, and we could pick that up through the screen and through her voice and through the frequencies that were being shared, right? And so we know you now, and we believe you because we know the depth of your experience. So thank you so much for your vulnerability, as everybody has said. People were saying it in the chat. Thank you for being brave, your courage. I'm picking up on their words now, but yes, we so much.
That's
and
lovely.
it's so
Thank
good
you.
for you. So
Thank
good
you for
for
witnessing
you.
my journey, guys. Thank you for bearing witness. Yeah.
Yeah. Any final thoughts from you, Michael, about Julia's presentation?
So, just so you know, Julia, I kind of earlier spoke about, how you were condensing such a major topic into a small time and how I couldn't do that. Just like we talked this morning on your show about it. And I did share without putting names what, you and Drago went through, because I was like, I just shared the synchronicity and the power of the two moments merging in one on different places, but it was your story, so I didn't share the names. And so,
Yeah, Draco
but
and I have a pact basically that we will continue talking about each other because we have that shared testimony. And there's also, another person who's in the merge group, and we have like this disclosure now pact. So whereas it's not always cool to talk about other people, but because we're all there together, we're all committed to sharing what we know to be true. So it is, yeah. So, but he is my brother. You can tell he's my brother. If you've watched the video of the two of us sitting side by side at bases, you can see that he's my brother. It's so bizarre, right? And we felt it energetically, but we literally have the same mannerisms. We look similar. It's freaky. So yeah, so I do talk about that. Terry's saying ring, ring, ring. Yes. I got a call come in during my presentation, or two calls, and it really frustrated me because it was a prime example of having a handler infiltrate what you're doing. And it was like a reminder of, don't forget you're not alone. Don't forget you're being handled and targeted. And because it was like why that person chose to ring me in that moment when they had 10 hours to call me. That was just classic handling techniques. Yeah. And that person would have been unaware that they were being handled in that moment to do that. But I just couldn't believe it. It just kind of adds to the mystery, doesn't it, of being a targeted individual, an empowered person who's targeted. So yeah. So that did annoy me, but it was like you can see really what's going on, right?
yeah, so
Yeah.
Julia, I just want to say, final thought for you is thank you for inspiring and sharing, what you did and how you did it, because it did make it relatable, which is extremely hard.
Mm.
I know, and I know you know, and everybody in the programs knows. And so I am in awe that you were able to pull that off and
Yeah.
get through it. But at the same time, keep inspiring. And
Mm.
I'm going to take a moment. Gina did not know I was going to do this since Julia chimed in. And I'm going to shamelessly plug that I have the benefit and the blessing to co host with Julia a new panel that we are starting to help those that are new to the program awareness
Mm.
and find their involvement. So we are so blessed that we are doing that once a month and having a small group come on, share, give them space to share their voice, and we will share our experiences along with them and help them in their unfolding. And we will be bringing someone on who is more experienced to be like a role model, so to
Mm.
speak, or mentor. And so keep being you, keep
Mm.
doing what you're doing. And I know you say you are jealous of me and my Wonder Twin, but I gotta say, after yesterday, I am a little jealous of you and your twin, but do know, and I'm
Yeah.
going to share this with everyone here because this is how it unfolded is Julia sent me the post that he made, and in reading it, I
Yeah.
reached out to my twin and I said, we need to collaborate and do something beyond what we're talking about. And she was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, yes, we do. So
Yeah.
do know I will hint at what it is by saying, Gina, you are in for a huge treat on your story species, story medicine,
Oh,
because
wow.
when this gets done, I am bringing it your way.
That's amazing. See, my twins, we can't always express because we're still healing. It's still very raw for us, and there's many versions of us: Japanese, German, lots of different versions of us. So whereas you've already established this really beautiful connection with your Wonder Twin, mine is we're still very raw, and he's a badass super soldier. I'm not gonna lie, he really is a badass super soldier, and he lives that every day. So we do not have the words. I've got shut down emotional suppression code, so we can't always express what we're trying to say. So when he does something like that, and probably every 6 months he's put something out there for me to try and say, look, I see you and I respect the work that you're doing and I love you. And we did, when we met in person, we did get to that moment to give each other a hug and share loving forgiveness with each other. We did. But on a day-to-day basis, we don't have that kind of connection that you have. We don't have that close friendship because we literally are soldiers who are designed to work as one soldier. So it's a very different relationship that we have as a dyad pair, rather than, regular trauma twins who are just two separate people who are brought together, in that emotional bond. So we can't always express. So I am, and that's one of the reasons why I can do the presentation. Not that I didn't find it emotional, I did, but I potentially can present it easier for me because I don't have the same emotional awareness as everybody else here, right? So for a lot of my life, I was just like Wednesday Addams. I was just completely shut down. So that helps me put this out there so I can do it from a more neutral perspective in a way at times. My twin is very emotional. He really does have a huge compassionate heart. He really does. And, he's very compassionate for the environment and things like that. Whereas I see myself as more as the darker side, whereas he's my light. So it's a very, very interesting connection. So so I love it, when he does put that out there to say, like, I'm proud of you kind of thing. It's amazing. Yeah. Because we don't have, we might only talk maybe 6 times a year or something, right? We really don't, we don't feel the need to be constantly interacting. We both do us, and he doesn't want to influence my testimony. He wants me to get my own memories forward. So he doesn't share whatever's going on with him, he doesn't share that with me because it could potentially influence what I'm bringing forward. So we do our work very separately that way. But we do, we acknowledge each other publicly, and that's enough for us. Yeah, so he is a badass twin, though. He really is. I'm very fortunate.
And Julia, in July at a friend's party, I am bringing my twin as my +1.
Nice.
And so we will meet for the first time. So I'll be able to say, just like you, I have met in person my twin.
Honestly, from the moment we first interacted, you could feel our energetic signature change, right? And then it took a day to recalibrate, though. It was uncomfortable for the first day. By the second day, we were in sync, and you could see that on the recording that we did together. But we were literally like in sync. It was mad, yeah. So I hope you have a great connection with your Wonder Twin. Yeah.
Back to you, Gina.
Wow. I'm just sitting here going, wow. That's just so amazing, and the BASIS conference is going to be extra amazing just because of this little connection now, and you being a speaker, a dragon medicine bearer on my show as well. So
yeah. So
wow.
I'm hosting the BASIS conference coming up Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I'm hosting, stage coordinator as well. So I'm working with all the speakers over the weekend. Plus I'll be setting up side podcasts for the Typical Skeptic podcast. And Slavka, the Natural Sentient, is coming to BASIS. So she's going to be podcasting as well. It's going to be so good. So there's a new level of my words. So I'm going to be doing the same or similar presentation at BASIS, hopefully on the Sunday, if I can. So this was like the exclusive read through in a way. And I'm getting loads of feedback from my friends, on how to make positive changes so that I'm not going to burst into tears on stage with 5 cameras on me and things like that. Yeah, so BASIS TV is a big event. Miles does a very professional edit and cut on it. So that's a big one for me. And last year in December, it was Drago on stage, and he called me on stage and I was not prepared. So that's why he put that post out, basically to kind of say, you got this, Yeah.
Well, I wish I was going, somebody buy me a ticket so I can get there, But on that note, I really want to thank everybody for their time. Julia, you're going to have to catch the replay because we said lots of positive comments about you. And you're still in the pine tree forest, those of you who are listening in. So I really like that. And again, the replay is $10. It'll be available for free December 21st. If you were one of those people who you ended up watching it and you didn't buy it and you weren't gifted the link, please consider making a donation on my Buy Me a Coffee so I can keep bringing amazing dragon speakers together, so I can continue to take my personal time to do the behind the scenes administration. I really enjoy doing it, but it is workload. It does take time, that thing that we, timelessness. And this summer, I was hopeful to have an in-person conference. I still might have one, but I'm really not sure about that because my cat Rosie and I are moving where we don't even know yet. But hopefully next year, we'll have an in-person. And like Michael was saying, we've got 4 online conferences to look forward to each year. The next one's going to be September 19th and then December 12th. So if you're interested in being a speaker, reach out to me. If you want to get in on monitoring or helping out in any way, shape, or form, please reach out to me. So on a final note, I feel like I can hang out with you guys all day. And for what it's worth, after something phenomenal like this happens, we are on such a life high that maybe starting tomorrow or even later on today, a lot of Dragon Dreamers might start feeling a sense of sadness, so we're still connected. Come hang out with us. Sheila's got books and social media on the go. Michael, Julia hosting shows. I'm hosting shows. So your soul tribe is there, and we do very much await you. So thank you so much again. The live stream is going to end, and it's a special thank you video. This played yesterday at our conference. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you to everybody who was involved. I really appreciate it. Take care. And thanks everybody, Michael, Julia, and Sheila, and Missy. We had Missy here too for a little bit earlier, and looking forward to connecting with everybody at a different time. So take care, Dragon Dreamers. See you.